So let's talk about possible troubleshooting that you'll have to do with the power load system. Here's the first thing you need to know. Once the gurney's locked into place, the battery is constantly being charged. It should be unlikely that you ever have a dead battery. But what happens if you do have a dead battery? So you have no power to the gurney, but you have power to the load mechanism. What we're going to do is we're going to bring the gurney into the proper position and do our normal procedures and load the gurney into the locking mechanism. Again, you have power to the load system, so you'll see a yellow light turn to green light, which means you are ready to raise the legs. Two things need to happen. First, you need to depress the up button on the power load guide. Remember, you have no power to the gurney, so no buttons are working. That will raise your arms into the proper position. Once your arms are in the proper position, you'll have to manually lift up the legs. You're going to release the lever, and one of the crew members will then lift up the legs manually into the proper position. You'll release the latch and then load the gurney properly into the ambulance. So we want to make sure that the power load system is being charged continuously. It's going to happen by two ways. One, when the unit's on, the power load system is being charged. When the unit's parked and the engine is off, we're going to plug into that shoreline to make sure that we're charging that system up. However, in the event there is a failure of the power load system, which means we have no power to the glide mechanism, what are we going to do? Well, it's very similar to what we currently do. We don't have a power load system in our regular ambulances. So before we can move the gurney into position, we have to move the glide system back to the rescue seat. And now it's like our regular system. I'm going to lift up the gurney to the proper load height. I'm going to roll it into and latch it into the hook. And then I will lift up our gurney with two-person lift and load it into the ambulance as we do right now. So here's the last troubleshooting point. In the event, which should be unlikely, that we have no power to the gurney and no power to the glide system. How are we going to maneuver that patient into the ambulance in that situation? We're going to move the glide system to the front of the ambulance and prepare it for loading. Secondly, we're going to load the gurney as we normally do. Latch it into the proper spot, and we will manually lift up the legs and then load the gurney into the ambulance. As the gurney is rolling in, there's a locking mechanism underneath the gurney, and it will lock onto the power load system. You will hear that click. Once that click occurs, the gurney is locked into the system. Just check it before you shut the doors. If we have a power failure in any system, the gurney, the power load system, once the call is done, your patient's been turned over to the hospital, you're going to write up a repair tag, drive over to HQ, and get into another ambulance.